Amy sat quietly on her bed in her small apartment in La Jolla, a beautiful and wealthy neighborhood in San Diego. The soft, golden light from the evening sun came through the window, making everything glow. She held an old photo album in her hands, slowly turning the pages. Each picture felt like it came from another life. The smiles in the photos, hers and Michael's, no longer felt real. There was a picture of Michael wearing his old student uniform, and beside him, Amy in her white nurse's coat. They looked so young, so full of dreams. Back then, they didn't have much. Their dates were usually in the hospital cafeteria, sharing cheap coffee and talking about the future. Michael had said to her once, "Listen, Amy, when I become a doctor, I'll make you happy. Life is hard now, but one day it will all be worth it." Amy had believed him. She worked long night shifts as a nurse to support him while he studied. They lived in a tiny apartment, hardly ever went out, never bought new clothes or fancy things, but still, they were happy, or at least she thought they were. She remembered those nights when Michael would stay up late reading thick medical books. She would make him midnight snacks and rub his sore shoulders. She believed in him, believed in their dream of building a life together. She thought they were a team. Amy looked at the bed where the photo album lay open, and beside it, her wedding ring sparkled under the light. It was a thin platinum band with their names and wedding date engraved inside. Slowly, with shaking hands, she took it off and placed it gently in a little pink jewelry box, something her grandmother had given her years ago. Tears fell silently down her face. She didn't try to stop them. Outside the window, the sky turned a deep red. The California sun was setting, just like the chapter of her life she was closing. Her thoughts drifted to her sister, Jessica. Their relationship had always been difficult. Jessica had always been the star in their family. She had golden hair, a loud laugh, and loved being the center of attention. At school, Jessica always got the lead roles in plays and the biggest cheers at dance shows. At home, all eyes were on her. Amy's mother used to say, "Amy, you're the older sister. Be understanding. You're the smart one. Let Jessica shine." Even in family photos, Jessica stood proudly in the middle while Amy was pushed to the side. Christmas, birthdays, Jessica always got the biggest gifts and the most praise. But Amy never complained. She told herself it was okay. She truly wanted her sister to be happy. That's what family meant, right? Then one day, everything changed. It happened in a moment, so fast, so painful. Amy was walking through the hallway of San Diego Memorial Hospital, taking a short break, when she saw Michael's phone light up. A message popped up, and her eyes caught it without meaning to. Her heart stopped. It was a love message, from Jessica. There were pictures of them, dining together in fancy restaurants, spending weekends at hotels, holding hands. They had been secretly meeting for months, whispering words of love, laughing behind her back. Everything felt like it broke all at once. Her knees went weak. A fellow nurse saw her face and rushed to catch her before she collapsed. Amy felt the ground disappear beneath her. The life she had built for 7 years, her marriage, her dreams, was falling apart like a sandcastle in the wind. After the divorce, Amy transferred to a different hospital, Scripps Mercy. It was the only way she could breathe again. There, she worked in the children's ward. The smiles of the young patients, even as they battled serious illnesses, slowly helped Amy's heart heal. Their bravery gave her strength. In their tiny hands and bright eyes, she began to feel like herself again. And then, she met someone, David, the hospital's director. "Miss Brown," he said one day with a kind smile, "your work is excellent. We're lucky to have you here." His voice was calm, full of warmth. Slowly, Amy began to feel a little bit of hope again. Maybe she could start over. Maybe life wasn't over after all. A small light began to shine inside her again. As the sun dipped below the horizon and her room grew darker, Amy gently put the photos back into the album. She stood up, placed the album back on the shelf, and closed the jewelry box. Tomorrow was a new day. She was done looking back. But just as she sat down, something arrived in her mailbox, an invitation. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The paper was thick and elegant, with shiny gold letters. A wedding invitation. Jessica and Michael were getting married. The wedding would be held at the fancy Manchester Grand Hyatt, on the top floor, where the windows looked out over the beautiful San Diego Bay. She read the message again and again. "Amy, you'll come, won't you? We want the whole family to celebrate. Jessica is looking forward to seeing you." It was from her mother. Her voice on the phone later was cheerful, as if nothing had happened, as if her daughter's husband hadn't cheated, as if her other daughter hadn't betrayed her own sister. Amy sat still for a long time after the call, her heart hurt in a way she couldn't describe. Later, at the hospital, she sat in the break room with her colleague Carol. The older nurse had gray hair pulled into a neat bun and eyes full of kindness. She had become Amy's closest friend since the transfer. Amy whispered, "Should I even go? Everyone will stare, they're all on Jessica's side anyway." Carol took her hand gently and said, "Amy, you have nothing to be ashamed of, you didn't do anything wrong. They did, you hold your head high, let them see your strength." Amy's eyes filled with tears. "But I'm scared, what if I break down in front of them?" Carol smiled softly, "You won't, you're stronger than you think, and remember, life sometimes surprises you. Good things come when you least expect them." Amy nodded slowly. She didn't know it then, but Carol's words would come true in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Amy was the first to run forward when she saw the young girl's mother stand up and speak. "My daughter is alive today because of her," the mother said, her voice full of emotion. "Amy is our angel." Those words seemed to break the silence in the large wedding hall. Slowly, people began to stand up all around the room. They were patients' families and fellow staff members from the children's hospital. One by one, they shared stories, real, heartfelt stories of how Amy had helped them during the darkest times of their lives. One mother spoke about how Amy stayed with her sick child all night, holding his hand and reading to him when the doctors had said there was little hope. Another father said Amy had encouraged him not to give up when his daughter needed a difficult operation. Over and over, people stood up, offering their thanks. The atmosphere in the room began to shift. Earlier, many guests had whispered behind Amy's back. Some had looked at her with judgment or pity, but now, those looks were gone. Respect filled the air. People looked at Amy not as a forgotten ex-wife or the quiet sister, but as someone truly remarkable. Then David, the hospital director, stepped forward again. He held the microphone with calm confidence. "Yes," he said, "Amy is a treasure at our hospital. She helps children even in the most hopeless situations. She brings light when everything seems dark. Who could ever say that someone like her is unloved?" The room went quiet. People looked at each other, feeling ashamed for their earlier behavior. Jessica and Michael, sitting stiffly at the front, looked pale. Their smiles had vanished. Even their parents, who had always favored Jessica, were looking down at the floor, their faces full of guilt. David wasn't finished. "There's more," he said, his voice louder now. "We recently received a letter from the American Pediatric Nursing Association. They've chosen Amy Brown as the winner of this year's Excellence in Nursing Award." The crowd erupted in applause. Amy stood frozen, tears spilling from her eyes. It was like everything she had gone through, the pain, the betrayal, the nights crying alone, was finally being seen, finally being honored. David turned toward Michael, his face growing stern. "You should be ashamed," he said sharply. "As a doctor, you falsified medical records, threatened young doctors, and worst of all, betrayed your wife with her own sister. My hospital would never hire a man like you." Michael's face turned gray. His body slumped in the chair. All around the hall, shocked whispers filled the air. "And Jessica," David continued, turning to her now, "you tried to ruin your sister's life just because you were jealous. But people who bring real happiness to others don't do such things. They give hope, they heal." David then slowly walked across the room toward Amy. In the golden light of the setting sun, it felt like time had stopped. Everyone watched in silence. "Amy," he said gently, his voice soft but clear, "you are the one who truly deserves love. I remember the first time I saw you, after a long night shift, reading a story to a sick child. You were exhausted, but you still smiled for that child. That moment stayed with me." Amy's heart ached at his words. "Your smile brings peace to families. Your hands bring comfort to those in pain. Your dedication inspires everyone around you." David's voice broke slightly, but he continued. "I fell in love with your heart. Every day I saw you, I admired you more." Tears rolled down Amy's cheeks again, but now they were tears of something more than sadness, something brighter. Then, in front of everyone, David slowly knelt down on one knee. "But you deserve to know the whole truth," he said, his voice firm again. "Michael Thompson is not the man you once believed he was." David looked around at the guests. "He lied in patient records to hide a mistake during heart surgery. The patient survived, but not because of him, it was thanks to our emergency team. The room buzzed. Michael looked like he might faint. And Jessica, David continued, you had an affair with a married man 3 years ago and were sued. Michael paid your settlement with Amy's savings. Gasps came from the crowd. Jessica's face turned pale, her perfect white dress now seeming like a cruel joke. There's more, David said, holding up a folder. Michael is in deep debt. Jessica stole money from the salon she worked at, and together, they planned this betrayal. Michael slowly transferred Amy's savings into his own account while pretending it was for school. Jessica encouraged this so she could get more of the family inheritance. Amy felt like she couldn't breathe. It was more than just betrayal, it was a cruel, planned deception, but at the same time, the truth brought relief. She wasn't imagining things, she wasn't weak, they really had used her. David held up an envelope. This is Michael's termination notice. He will lose his license soon. Michael fell back into his chair. And Jessica, your case is being looked at by the tax office. Was this wedding even paid for legally? Jessica started crying. Her mascara ran down her face. Her dress dragged on the floor as she slumped down, defeated. David looked back at Amy. His voice softened again. But I didn't come here to shame them. I came to speak about love. He pulled out a small box and opened it. Inside was a ring that caught the sunlight, sparkling like a rainbow. Amy Brown, he said, will you marry me? Let me stay by your side. Let me love your pure heart for the rest of my life. Gasps filled the room. Some guests cried. And then, a little girl stepped forward, Sarah Wilson, holding a bouquet of white roses. Be happy, the girl said sweetly. Amy covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Her voice shook as she answered, yes. I would love to. The room exploded in applause. Her parents stood, crying openly. This was the moment everything changed. David gently placed the ring on Amy's finger. It felt heavier than the ring from her past marriage, not in weight, but in meaning. Let's move forward, David said, for the children, and for ourselves. They embraced as the chandeliers reflected the sunset, bathing them in golden light. Jessica and Michael had already left, unnoticed. No one cared anymore. Their lies had faded. What remained was love and truth. 1 year later, on a soft spring morning, sunlight poured into the pediatric ward at Scripps Mercy Hospital. Amy, now wearing her head nurse uniform, looked out the window at the peaceful city. Amy, how's the new ward coming? David asked from behind, smiling. Their wedding rings glimmered in the morning light. Everything's going well. We'll open next month. It was their dream, an advanced pediatric cancer center filled with warmth, love, and care. Sarah was discharged yesterday, David added. She's fully recovered. The little girl with the roses? Amy asked, smiling. Yes, she says she wants to be a nurse, just like you. She calls you her angel. Tears welled up in Amy's eyes. All the pain of the past had become her strength. Just then, there was a knock. Sweetheart, may we come in? It was her father, Thomas, with her mother behind him. Their expressions were softer now, full of apology. We're sorry, her mother said. We favored Jessica for so long. We didn't see your pain. Her father handed her an old photo, Amy and Jessica as children with their parents. We want to take a new one, he said, with you, and with David. Amy smiled, and just then, she felt a tiny kick in her belly, her baby. She was 3 months pregnant. Her parents' eyes filled with tears again. We'll be better this time, they promised, loving, fair grandparents. Amy took a deep breath, then nodded. Thank you. David watched them, smiling. As for Michael, he now worked at a tiny clinic in a rural Arizona town. No longer a doctor, he had sold his fancy car and spent his days paying off debt. The whispers never stopped. That's the man who faked medical records. Jessica lived in a small town in Nevada, doing temp beauty jobs. Her old fame was gone. Her once glamorous life was over. Every night, she whispered, I'm sorry, Amy. But Amy no longer carried hate in her heart. Her new life was filled with joy, love, and peace. Amy, time for the meeting, David said. Amy placed a hand on her belly and looked at the children's photos on the walls, her greatest joy. Yes, let's go, she replied, taking his hand. Together, they walked into the bright spring light, toward a future they had built with love. The story of heartbreak had ended, and a beautiful new chapter had begun.